Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 2 in the Bronco series. This is the first video of 2023, by the way, so welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Now, you've seen the other video where I disassembled the vehicle, did a little walk around on it, talked about what was going on and some plans for that. So now I want to show you more of that and what needs to happen for this to come together as a project. So in the previous video I talked about what's going to happen with this front section. I did say I was going to be spraying undercoating, but the reality is it's going to be truck bed liner. I'm going to be using that Raptor kit from U-Pole, and so there'll be more on that in this video. But before I do any of that, I stress all the time about test fitting and test fitting and test fitting. So one of the things that needs to happen is this box needs to be mounted in the firewall. That means I need to cut a hole basically where that hole is and recess that into it. I will also probably come up with a way to maybe add some brackets or something, because you can see this kit or this box actually had a bracket on the back side here. Those are the bolts that came with it. I don't know if we're going to use those or not, but those would go through these holes and it mounts with this tang facing down. So that is for the computer control for the engine. Now, what I'm talking about with the other pieces is I talked to the owner, and like these holes here, which I assume, I don't know if those were for the heater hose, but it looks like those are heater hose as well. But we're going to get rid of those holes, that hole, and probably weld up some of these holes on the side. Some other things I want to address. In looking at this, this is deflected down. I didn't do that. When I took the fender off, I saw this was bent. So I need to straighten this out. And then I don't like how this is right there. I don't know why it's bent like that, but the problem now is you can't just unbend that. There's not enough metal, or you stretch the metal and it won't collapse back in. So I may have to cut this, straighten these back up, weld that back together just to make it fit correctly. Same thing on the other side over there. You can see that one's deflected down as well. So some minor things like that need to be addressed. The other stuff I want to point out, when I was looking at the brake pedal and the gas pedal and that sort of thing, the brake pedal has these holes, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if you'll notice there's another hole down there that is in that plate, but it's not in the firewall. So if you look at the bracket itself, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 holes. So I don't know if it's absolutely necessary, but I will probably add that hole. Another thing I found, the gas pedal. If you see, it has the 2 holes or 2 bolts at the top there. Those correspond with those holes. So you put that up. But then that one, there's no hole. So I need to add that one. Now, I don't know if there's variations to these, if some of these had a pedal like this and some didn't, I don't know, but I want to make sure all this fits. Along with that, I've got that hole there, which I believe is for the parking brake. So if this is mounted, I'm assuming that's what that hole is for. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that's what it is. The upper holes over here, that one is for the wiring harness to go through. And I believe all those over there, of course, are for the heater box and that sort of thing. So it makes sense that those 2 holes would be for the heater core. I don't know what these were for, so they're going to go away. Now, in order to do that, I'm just going to make some round plugs, put them in place, tack weld them in, and smooth them out. And that's going to take care of the firewall, getting it in prep for the undercoating or the bed liner. Also, the paint is going to come all the way up and probably go to this lip. In that picture that I showed previously, that's how they did it, and I guess it kind of makes sense to do that, but I'm going to review that a little more and make sure that's what we end up with. In the back here, I do have, well, there's the tailgate. I haven't even taken that out of the box, but in the back I have the dash, and this looks, I don't know, it feels like it's maybe in a well-through primer or something. I know it's silver, but it's not a smooth texture. But this is going to get painted white as well, and that'll get attached to the upper section of the cowl, let's say. And here I have these 2 pieces. These are fillers for the gap from the lift kit. So whenever you go lift a vehicle like this, you end up with a space between the frame and the body, because normally this would sit down low. So this kit is designed to take care of that. And this is from James Duff Inc., I think is what it says on it. So it gives you a bolt kit for the rear, a bolt kit for the front. There's some conflict with this, but I'll show you that in just a second. But the rear, apparently it just bolts actually to the frame. That's what it says from what I've seen online. These holes here correlate to the frame rails, and then you put bolts through them. So it's not attached to the body itself. I'll set that in place and show you what I mean. So apparently that's how it's supposed to be. It just sits on top of the frame and fills that gap between the tailgate and the frame rails. That's all it is. 2 bolts. Nothing attaches on the sides, not intended to, and that's all you do for that. Now I want to show you the front piece to the grill. Alright, so this is the grill, and this would normally sit, I guess, really close to the frame if you didn't have the lift kit on it. So again, this piece is meant to fill that. These cutouts go around the frame rail itself, and it's supposed to go right up like this onto this grill, this surround. However, what I found is the flange on this, you can see the angle there, how steep that is, right? This flange is not the same. So if I put this in, and I just held it in place with my fingers, that's what I end up with. That's not going to work. So the question is, do I modify this piece? I'm going to say no, because this is bent on a machine. These are, pretty seriously bent flanges, pretty thick metal. And this piece, I can see it's got a weird deflection to it. This needs to be bent back. So I'm going to have to modify the grill to make this piece fit, because you want it to fit pretty much like that. Now the other thing I noticed is this has these little cuts on the end. So they did this as a relief whenever they made this curve. But the reality is it's not a curve. It's actually angles. I don't know how well that shows up. Can you see that? Those are all tiny or short bends to make that curve. So it's not actually round like it appears. It's a whole bunch of angles put together. It makes sense to do that, but the difficulty is when you try to paint that, I think all that's going to show up. So this is going to have to get addressed. Whether it's a skim coat of filler to smooth that out or whatever, I'm going to have to take care of that as well. So as I said, I will be using this Raptor bedliner material, and you mix these 2 components and you put this gun into the neck of that bottle and you spray with it. So I'm going to have to mask off all of the front of this vehicle, the frame, all that sort of stuff that you don't want to get overspray on, and that's going to take a little bit of time. I am probably going to prep all this and spray it with epoxy as well, so that it does have some sort of base to it. I don't want to go straight to the the bed liner. I don't know if that's what they did with the rest of it or not, but that's my plan at this point. So again, plug off those holes, prep it, spray it, and move on. So the first thing I want to address is this component box. And as I said, that's going to be mounted to the firewall. So I'm going to make a cardboard template of that face and use it as a guide for whenever I make the hole in the firewall. Now I did trace this tang as well because I want to make sure that I have it facing the right way. As I said, this faces out and that would be on the driver's side, so same situation here. Basically I'm going to cut that out, and then I'm going to have to look for some other anomalies, like this has this little hump right here, and that may affect the opening. Now the opening can be a little bit off as long as we get it in the right spot and get it high enough on the firewall. Okay, so now I have the rough template. This is going to give me the location based on the size of this opening. So when that goes up against the inside of the firewall, I can't go any higher. Now what I want to do is take this and do some measuring. So I want to measure off of each face here and determine what the drop is. So the distance from that flange, or that edge of the flange, to this inner structure is what's important, because that's the part I'm going to be cutting out. So if I were to measure this, roughly an inch in this case, probably the same on the other side, about an inch, and then up on top, same kind of thing. Do a drop on it and figure out that that's around 3/4 of an inch. And then this one on the lower side, got the gasket in the way, but it's probably somewhere around 1/2 inch. So I can come inside, create that dimension in there, cut that out of the center of the cardboard, and then that is my trace line when I put it back up on the firewall. Trace inside of this, cut that out, leave that exterior area. So there's what I've come up with. I did put that little notch right there for around that piece on the housing. And now I have a good template that I can go by. You can see it's a little bit big, and that's okay, because I can trace that, and I could cut to the line that I traced to, or cut inside that line, just so it fits. Alright, the box is in place. Now I used these bolts that came with it, but what I started with was one of these. This is a self-tapping type of bolt, same diameter. So that's what I did. I drilled the holes, ran the self-tapper through, and then used these. So that is right where it needs to be. From the inside, that fits really nice. A little bit of a gap above it. And I debated on modifying this bracket somehow to attach it back to it, whether it's like that, or turn it over, or turn it around and reshape it and that sort of thing. But the reality is, this is really stiff. It doesn't need it. So I'm not going to take up any valuable space behind the dash by adding that bracket. So now what I want to do is take care of those holes that I identified that are going to be welded shut. So those two large ones there, this one and that one. And then I will also be welding shut these holes here. Now these are small enough you can just take the welder and kind of build up weld to fill that in. This one, I don't know yet if I'm going to make something or just kind of build it up like I mentioned earlier. But on the inside, what I've done is taken, in this case, this is a 19mm socket. That basically fits that hole. So that is now my template for that to make a plug. The other one is 15. Really close to fitting that. And what I plan to do is take the piece that I cut out of the firewall, and that's going to be my template. Trace those out and cut out some plugs, and I'll be using this, my shear. This is great for cutting out all kinds of different shapes, but I've used it frequently to make plugs. So I ground off what is the galvanized coating on this and the holes. This one actually fits really nice. It's in there by itself. I did make a little filler that's going to go in this hole right here as well. And then these other ones I'll just weld shut. I may or may not make a filler for this just yet, but The other things that need to happen is I'm going to cut this, flatten this out, weld that back together, of course straighten out some bent metal, and I need to do the same thing on the other side. To do all the welding, I plan to use this handy little MIG 205DS from Yes Welder. I've done a video on that. I really like this little machine, and I think that'll handle it. I'm using .023, I think, wire, or 024, 025, whatever it is. 025. Okay. So let me get this welded in. Okay, things are looking pretty good. As you saw, I welded up these holes in the side panels, and I also welded shut some of the holes on the firewall. Got those taken care of, and of course I cut in the box for the control module and welded that opposite side. Now that box, it's almost like that was made for it. I love the way that looks as far as a fit. It fits that gap almost dead on. And the owner, I think he told me this was from a Ford Focus. Apparently they make plastic versions of this, and this is a metal one. I forget what year, but that's what that is from. As you can also see, I hope you can see, I put in the gas pedal, and I fitted the brake pedal assembly. Because like I stress, make sure everything fits before you move too far. So parking brake lines up nice. I did have to add a hole for the gas pedal and that lower hole for the brake bracket. But it looks like it's going to work out fine. Now, I'm going to have to change direction here a little bit. As I was researching the material needed to do the front, I think I mentioned maybe on a live stream, and I may have mentioned earlier that, of course, this is a lot of galvanized material. And in looking that up, apparently you probably shouldn't spray it with epoxy, which is what I wanted to do initially. As I looked more into it, Raptor does sell an adhesion promoter that is specific to galvanized and various other metals, and so I went ahead and ordered some of that, but it's going to take, it won't be here in time to finish this video for this week. So that's where I'm going to have to stop with what I'm doing. But I've also read that you can take white vinegar and wipe down any of the galvanized material in preparation for your applications. So hopefully that's correct. If anybody else has seen that or heard of that, let me know. But as of right now, that's what I've read, and I think that's going to be a suitable way to take care of prepping this. Along with that, as I mentioned, we'll be undercoating or spraying the bed liner all the way in this front section, and this top will be getting paint. Now, I've also, if I haven't shown this already, I've got the box out for the tailgate, so I'll have to open that up and get into it. But let me tell you what my plan is at this point. Okay, so what I was trying to accomplish on this video was have all of this sprayed with the bed liner material. And because of the delay in the adhesion promoter, I just can't make that happen. But I got to thinking about this a little more. I'm still going to make that probably my first priority to get that done. However, in thinking about the paint process and what I need to accomplish, I talked this over with Roger, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit. And basically, I want to get all of the panels, the separate panels, into epoxy and high build primer. So the doors, the fenders, the hood, the tailgate, the dash, if I can, everything along those lines, get them into high build primer. I'm not going to worry about the grill just yet, but all those other pieces I can. In doing so, I can get those pieces ready and then pull them out of the paint booth, roll this into the paint booth, get it prepped, primed, seam sealed, all those things that need to happen, and then it may just stay in there. And that way I'm not shuffling back and forth. If I put this in first, then I got to roll it back out, drag the pieces in, drag them back out, roll this back in. And I think it's going to be simpler to take care of the smalls first, or the loose pieces, get them all ready. You know what I'm getting at there. It's just a matter of timing. I've said it many times. In the military, they would tell us, sequence is scored, especially in basic training. And that's kind of how I'm looking at that. What is the best sequence so that I'm not double doing things? So that's where I'm at right now. So at this point, that'll be the end of this particular video. I wish I had more to show you, but I'm just kind of at a standstill at the moment, waiting on materials to show up. So I plan to move all those pieces into the paint booth, start prepping those. You know how exciting that is, Scotch-Brite, scuff, all that, yay. But that'll be the next series in this video, but that'll be the next video in the series, is probably getting that taken care of, unless I do one specifically on the engine bay area. So stay tuned either way. I want to thank you for watching. I hope we have a great 2023 together. I want to thank my patrons who support me. It's fantastic that they're doing that, and I appreciate them so much. And if you're interested in becoming a patron, there's a link in the description below. Also, you can go to my Amazon page if you want to buy any products that I may have shown or whatever. Every little bit helps. So if you would, leave a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know what you think about this video. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. So as I mentioned, this front section is going to be sprayed with, So in the first video, I mentioned that I would be spraying undercoating. I was being very generic with that. Some people said, why not use truck bed liner, which exactly. Now, as I mentioned, I will be using this Raptor hardener, and it has a gun kit with it, and all this is by Custom Shop. So I have not used this product specifically, but I feel like it's going to be a good result for what we're doing, and I will be it comes with a gun, obviously the main component and the hardener. Mix all that together and you can spray it on. So to do that, I'm going to be coming. So as I said, I will be using this Raptor bed liner kit. It comes with a spray gun, the hardener, and the main component. You mix that together and put